That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun rose sharp over Naval Base Coronado, casting long shadows across the asphalt parade ground. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez stood at attention in her crisp Navy utilities, the fabric still carrying the faint starch of the morning's press. At 34, she was one of the first women to qualify as a SEAL, her Bud S pin gleaming on her collar like a quiet testament to endurance. Beside her, Rex, her Belgian Malinois K9 partner, sat rigid, his black mask alert, ears pricked to the cadence of boots striking pavement. The air hummed with the low drone of a distant Black Hawk warming its rotors, and the salt tang from San Diego Bay clung to everything. "Platoon, attention!" The command barked from Master Chief Harlan, a grizzled veteran whose voice cut through the coastal breeze like a K-bar. 200 sailors and SEALs snapped into formation, spines straight, eyes forward. This was EOD Dive School's weekly PT drill, explosive ordnance disposal training, laced with the unyielding rhythm of military life. Vasquez felt the familiar pull in her shoulders, the weight of her rucksack mirroring the invisible load of command. Rex's harness matched hers, his tags jingling softly as he mirrored her posture, a bond forged in the mud of Hell Week and the silence of night ops. Harlan paced the front, his boots echoing on the concrete. "Today, we review detection protocols. Vasquez, your lead on the K9 sweep. Remember, precision over speed. One false alert, and we start over." Nods rippled through the ranks. Vasquez acknowledged with a crisp, "Aye, aye, Chief," her voice steady, betraying none of the fatigue from last night's classified briefing. As a handler, she lived by the creed: trust your dog, trust the team, trust the mission. Rex had saved her life twice in Afghanistan, once sniffing out an IED under a market stall, his low growl the only warning before the blast. Their partnership was unspoken loyalty, a silent contract in a world of barked orders. The drill commenced with mechanical efficiency. Pairs fanned out across the mock urban site, shipping containers rigged as buildings, scattered debris simulating blast zones. Vasquez unclipped Rex's lead, signaling with a hand gesture, thumb to chest, then forward. He moved low, nose to the ground, tail a straight line. The team followed at intervals, detectors humming, eyes scanning for anomalies. Radio chatter crackled in her earpiece. "Sector clear, moving to grid 2. Vasquez's focus narrowed to Rex's flanks, the way his muscles tensed under the tactical vest. In the SEALs, vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the gap between vigilance and error. Halfway through the sweep, the routine fractured. Private First Class Tomas Ruiz, a young EOD tech fresh from boot, lagged behind his partner. Ruiz was solid, top scores in sims, but whispers in the barracks painted him as eager to prove himself, sometimes too much. As Vasquez's team cleared a corner, Ruiz's detector beeped erratically near a planted sim explosive. "Contact!" he shouted, voice pitching high. The platoon froze. Harlan bellowed, "Hold positions!" But Ruiz didn't wait. He lunged forward, overriding protocol by not signaling his handler first. In his haste, he clipped Rex's path, the dog's sudden evasion sending him tumbling into a gravel pit. Vasquez's heart slammed. Instinct overrode command. She dropped to one knee, ignoring the eyes on her, and steadied Rex with a firm hand on his collar. "Easy, boy, steady." Rex whined once, low and pained, shaking off dirt but limping on his front paw. The injury was minor, a sprain likely, but in training it was a breach. Harlan stormed over, face thunderous. "Vasquez, what the hell was that? You broke formation." His glare shifted to Ruiz. "And you. Protocol exists for a reason. Dogs first in detection. You just compromised the asset." Ruiz stood rigid, sweat beading on his brow. But his eyes flicked with something sharper, resentment. "Chief, I was clearing the threat. The dog's fine." The words hung, laced with dismissal, as if Rex were equipment, not partner. Vasquez rose slowly, her hand lingering on Rex's flank, feeling the rapid thump of his heart. The chain of command demanded she report it clean, drill over, debrief later. But conscience tugged, a quiet erosion of the discipline she'd sworn to uphold. In the SEALs, loyalty wasn't just to superiors, it extended to the unspoken code between handler and canine, the trust that mirrored the team's own fragility. She met Harlan's eyes. "Chief, Rex needs vet check. Ruiz's maneuver endangered the sweep." Murmurs stirred in the ranks. Harlan's jaw tightened. "Stow it, Lieutenant. Finish the drill." The order was iron, but Vasquez felt the fracture widen. As the platoon reformed, Rex limping at her heel, she walked the perimeter in silence, the playground fence beyond the base wire catching her eye. Children laughed there, oblivious to the world's rigid lines. A boy in a faded cap kicking a ball, his small frame echoing the vulnerability she'd just witnessed. By midday, the vet cleared Rex, bruised but operational. Vasquez kennelled him with a soft command. "Rest, partner," and reported to Harlan's office. The space was sparse, metal desk, stacked manuals, a faded photo of his Iraq tour. "Explain yourself," Harlan said, not looking up from his log. "Sir, Ruiz's actions risked more than the dog. It was a judgment call that could cascade in the field." Vasquez stood at ease, voice level, but her fingers flexed at her sides, the subtle tremor of restrained frustration. Harlan leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You're new to command, Vasquez. Women like you push boundaries, but this unit runs on obedience. Ruiz is green, he'll learn. You, focus on your role." The implication landed. Her gender, her innovations with K9 integration, made her a target for scrutiny. No outright hostility, just the institutional weight that tested resolve daily. She saluted and exited, the door clicking shut behind her. Outside, the base buzzed with afternoon routines, trucks rumbling, sailors jogging in formation. Vasquez's path took her past the playground again, the fence a thin barrier between military order and civilian life. The boy from earlier stood alone now, watching her approach, his eyes, wide and tear-streaked, locked on her uniform. Without a word, he raised a small hand in salute, fist to brow, holding it steady despite the quiver in his lip. Vasquez paused, the gesture piercing the armor of her discipline. In that moment, amid the echo of boots and radio static, she saw the ripple, a child's unspoken respect, mirroring the loyalty she fought to protect. She returned the salute, crisp and formal, then continued on. But the seed of defiance had taken root, a quiet vow to challenge the orders that blinded justice. As the sun dipped toward the bay, casting golden flecks on Rex's fur through the kennel bars, Vasquez knew this was only the beginning. The base's rhythms would demand compliance, but conscience whispered of costs, yet unpaid. The afternoon sun beat down on Naval Base Coronado, turning the asphalt into a shimmering haze that distorted the horizon. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez moved through the administrative corridor of the EOD headquarters, her boots clicking softly against the polished linoleum. The air inside carried the faint scent of ink from printers and the underlying tang of gun oil from the armory down the hall. Rex was back in the kennel, his limp monitored by the base vet, but Vasquez's mind lingered on the morning's fracture. The way Ruiz's haste had endangered not just the dog, but the fragile trust that held the unit together. She entered the briefing room for the post-drill debrief, where folding chairs scraped against the floor as sailors filed in. Master Chief Harlan stood at the head of the scarred wooden table, a whiteboard behind him scrawled with grid maps and detection timelines. The room's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting stark shadows on the faces of the platoon. Seasoned operators with salt and pepper stubble, younger techs like Ruiz shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Vasquez took her place near the front, notebook open, pen poised. Protocol demanded documentation, every anomaly logged, every error dissected without emotion. "Begin with positives," Harlan started, his voice gravelly from years of field commands. He nodded to Senior Chief Patel, the EOD lead. "Detection accuracy held at 92%. Good work on Grid 3. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. Vasquez noted it down, her handwriting precise, but her focus drifted to Ruiz, seated 2 chairs away. He avoided her gaze, staring at his own pad, where he doodled faint lines, perhaps nerves, perhaps deflection. The discussion turned to the incident. Harlan tapped the board where he'd sketched the sweep path. "Ruiz, walk us through your call on the SIM explosive." All eyes shifted. Ruiz straightened, clearing his throat. "Chief, detector pinged positive. I moved to confirm. Standard threat neutralization." The K9 veered, no intent to interfere. His tone was even rehearsed, but Vasquez caught the subtle edge, the way his fingers gripped the pen tighter. In the SEALs, excuses were liabilities. Truth was the only currency. Harlan's gaze hardened. "Standard calls for handler sync first. You know that. Vasquez?" He turned to her, expectant. She met his eyes steadily. Rex alerted clean on approach. Ruiz's advance disrupted his line, causing the tumble. Minor injury, but it compromised the sweep's integrity. Her words were factual, stripped of accusation, yet they hung in the air like the static of a dead radio channel. The room grew quieter, the only sound the distant hum of a generator outside. Ruiz interjected, voice rising just a fraction. "With respect, ma'am, the dog's trained for evasion. If he couldn't handle the proximity—" He stopped as Harlan raised a hand. "Enough. Errors happen in training. Ruiz, extra sim runs tomorrow. Vasquez, ensure your K9's response time is logged for review." The chief's tone brooked no debate, redirecting the flow back to routine. But Vasquez felt the undercurrent, Harlan's deference to hierarchy over accountability, a pattern she'd seen in briefings before. As a woman in the teams, she'd learned to navigate it, speak facts, not fire. But today, with Rex's paw still tender under her touch earlier, the restraint chafed. Debrief, wrapped with assignments. Night calls for the platoon, Vasquez on rotation for K9 protocol updates. She lingered as others filed out, the scrape of chairs echoing like retreating footsteps in a corridor. Harlan caught her eye. "A word, Lieutenant." In his office adjacent, the door closed with a soft click, sealing out the base's ambient noise. Harlan sat behind his desk, gesturing to the chair opposite. "You're pushing this, Vasquez. Ruiz is solid, green but solid. Your report flags him, and now the command's asking questions." She remained standing, hands clasped behind her back. "Sir, it's not personal. Protocol protects the team. Human and K9. Rex isn't expendable." The words carried the weight of their shared history. Nights in the Hindu Kush, where a dog's nose had meant survival, where loyalty blurred the line between man and beast. Harlan sighed, rubbing his temple. "I get it. But you're walking a line here. Women handlers, it's new. Command watches closer. One misstep, and it's not just your career, it's the program's." His eyes softened fractionally, a rare glimpse of the mentor beneath the rank. "Focus on the mission. Let the system handle Ruiz." Vasquez nodded, saluting before exiting. The corridor felt narrower now, the walls pressing with unspoken expectations. Outside, the base transitioned to evening rhythms, floodlights flickering on, the low whine of a forklift in the supply yard. She made her way to the kennels, the gravel crunching underfoot, carrying the earthy scent of damp fur and pine shavings. Rex lifted his head as she approached his run, tail thumping once against the concrete. She knelt, running a hand along his side. feeling the steady rise and fall of his ribs. "Good boy," she murmured, the words a private ritual. No limp now, but the morning's jolt lingered in his cautious stance. In the quiet, Vasquez's thoughts turned to the playground boy, the salute, the tears glistening like dew on his cheeks. What had prompted it? A father's stories, a glimpse of the uniform's promise? It stirred something deeper, a reminder that the chain of command extended beyond base fences, touching lives in ways orders couldn't contain. Dinner in the mess hall was subdued, trays clattering, the murmur of conversations laced with shop talk. Next week's dive certs, rumors of a deployment rotation. Vasquez sat with her squad, picking at field rations disguised as Salisbury steak, Rex's absence a void at her feet. Across the room, Ruiz laughed with his buddies, the incident seemingly shed like morning dew. But as she watched, he glanced her way, expression unreadable. Challenge or regret? Night fell swiftly, the bay's lights twinkling like distant stars. Vasquez returned to her quarters, a Spartan room with a bunk, locker, and a single window overlooking the parade ground. She reviewed the day's logs by desk lamp, the yellow glow pooling on the paper. Harlan's warning echoed, "Focus on the mission," yet conscience gnawed, a quiet insistence that obedience without question eroded the very discipline it served. A knock interrupted. Peterson, her squadmate, a wiry corpsman with a medic's steady gaze. "Heard about the drill. Rex, okay?" He leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "Clearance given, but the call." Vasquez trailed off, setting down her pen. Peterson nodded. "Ruiz is cocky, but he'll shape up. Just don't let it stick to you." He paused, then added softly, "Saw you by the fence earlier." Kid saluted like he meant it. "Reminds you why we do this." She managed a tight smile. "Yeah, reminds me." As he left, the door's latch clicked, leaving her with the night's hush. Outside, a patrol dog's bark cut the silence, sharp and vigilant. Vasquez extinguished the light, lying awake as the base settled. The moral tension coiled tighter. Report the breach fully, risk the unit's harmony, or comply and let the fracture heal unseen. Rex's loyalty demanded more. The boy's salute echoed it. Tomorrow's training would test the balance, the line between duty and the quiet call of justice sharpening with each passing hour. The dawn patrol siren pierced the quiet of Naval Base Coronado, a steady wail that pulled sailors from their bunks like a gravitational force. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez was already awake, her internal clock tuned to the base's unyielding rhythm. She dressed methodically in the dim light of her quarters, utilities pressed, boots laced tight, the Bud S trident pin catching the faint glow from the window. Rex's absence from her side felt like a missing limb. The vet had ordered another day of rest, his paw wrapped in a light bandage. Vasquez clipped his spare tags to her belt, a ritual that grounded her, the metal cool against her hip. She stepped into the cool morning air, the salt breeze from the bay carrying the faint cry of gulls. The parade ground lay shrouded in mist, floodlights cutting hazy beams across the dew-slicked grass. Today's schedule: advanced K-9 integration drills, blending K-9 detection with EOD team maneuvers. Vasquez joined the platoon at the assembly point, where ranks formed with the precision of a well-oiled mechanism. Master Chief Harlan scanned the formation, his clipboard tucked under one arm. "Vasquez, you'll observe today. Peterson handles Rex's proxy with a backup shepherd. Keep logs on response variances." Aye, Chief," she replied, voice level, though the directive stung, a sidelining subtle but unmistakable. Peterson, the corpsman from last night, nodded to her as he took the lead on the mock handler, the backup dog named Shadow, moving at his heel with practiced obedience. The team dispersed to the training grid, concrete barriers simulating urban clutter, inert ordnance planted in shadowed corners. Radio static crackled in Vasquez's earpiece as sectors reported in, the chatter clipped and efficient. Grid 1 secure, advancing. From her vantage on the observation ridge, Vasquez watched the sweep unfold, notebook in hand. The air hummed with tension, the distant thump of waves against the pier underscoring the drill's gravity. Ruiz was paired with a veteran tech today, his movements sharper than yesterday, as if compensating for the debrief's shadow. But as the team cleared a simulated alleyway, stacked crates and tangled rebar, Vasquez spotted the anomaly. Ruiz's partner signaled a potential hit, but Ruiz pushed ahead again, his detector sweeping too wide. Shadow reacted, barking sharp and insistent, but Ruiz waved him off with a curt, "Stand down," his voice carrying on the wind. Vasquez's pen paused mid-note. Protocol was clear. K9 alerts took precedence, especially in tandem ops. She keyed her radio. "Control, this is Vasquez. Ruiz overriding K9 on grid 4. Request halt for verification." Static hissed, then Harlan's response. "Negative. Let it play. Debrief after." The drill pressed on, but the fracture deepened. Shadow pulled back, whining low, his handler, Peterson, glancing toward the ridge with concern. Ruiz cleared the zone prematurely, declaring it safe, and the team advanced. Only later, in the reset phase, did the error reveal itself. A missed SIM device tucked behind a barrier, exactly where Shadow had alerted. Harlan's face darkened as the platoon regrouped, boots scuffing the gravel in uneasy silence. "Ruiz," Harlan barked, halting the formation. "Explain the bypass." The chief's eyes bored into the young tech, who stood at attention, sweat tracing lines down his temple despite the morning chill. "Sir, detector read negative after my sweep. Dog was overreacting," Ruiz said, his words measured but laced with that same edge from the debrief, a dismissal of the canine's instinct as mere animal noise. Murmurs stirred among the ranks. Subtle shifts in posture betraying the unease. Vasquez stepped forward from the ridge, her presence drawing eyes. "Chief, with respect, Shadow's alert was valid. Overriding it risks the chain. Human oversight can't match a trained nose in clutter." Her tone remained factual, but the implication landed. Ruiz's judgment, unchecked, echoed yesterday's breach with Rex. Harlan turned, his expression a mask of controlled irritation. "Logged, Lieutenant, but this is training, not indictment. Ruiz, double quals. Everyone, break for chow." The dismissal was swift, but the air thickened, the platoon's cohesion fraying like a worn rope. As sailors dispersed toward the mess, whispers followed Ruiz, quiet speculations on his haste. His resistance to the K9 protocols Vasquez had helped integrate. Vasquez lingered, helping Peterson secure Shadow in the transport crate. The dog's flanks heaved with residual adrenaline, his dark eyes meeting hers in silent understanding. "Good work, boy," she murmured, scratching behind his ear, the fur warm and damp. Peterson wiped his brow. "Kid's got skill, but he's blind to the bond. Seen it before. Thinks tech trumps instinct." She nodded, the weight settling deeper. Lunch in the mess was a haze of clinking trays and subdued talk, the scent of boiled coffee mingling with grilled rations. Vasquez sat alone at first, reviewing her notes until a shadow fell across her table. Ruiz approached, tray in hand, his posture rigid but eyes averted. "Ma'am, about the drill. I didn't mean to question the program." Vasquez looked up. Fork paused mid-air. "It's not about intent, Private. It's about trust. In the field, that override could cost lives. Yours, the team's, the dog's." Her words were direct, no warmth, but no venom, just the disciplined truth of experience. He shifted, glancing at the empty seat beside Peterson across the room. "Understood. Won't happen again." But as he walked away, joining his group, Vasquez caught the flicker in his glance, a mix of deference and defiance, the kind that simmered in young operators testing boundaries. Afternoon brought administrative duties. Vasquez in the ops center, updating K9 logs on a flickering terminal, the room's air conditioner humming against the rising heat. Harlan entered unannounced, closing the door behind him. "Command's reviewing your reports, Vasquez. Ruiz's CO is pushing back, says you're singling him out." "Sir, the logs speak for themselves. 2 incidents in as many days. The system's integrity demands accountability." She stood, hands at her sides, the terminal's glow reflecting in her steady gaze. Harlan leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "And your integrity. Pushing this paints a target on all handlers, especially you. The brass tolerates innovation, but not division." His voice lowered, a rare concession. "Ease off, let training do the work." She saluted as he left, the door's click echoing her isolation. Outside, the base pulsed with activity, a convoy rumbling past, the sharp report of rifle quills from the range. Vasquez's path to the kennels took her past the playground once more, the fence wires glinting in the sun. The boy was there again, perched on a swing, his small feet dragging in the dirt. This time he didn't salute, just watched, eyes wide and unblinking, as if weighing her uniform against some inner measure. The gesture, or lack of it, lingered as she checked on Rex. He rose to greet her, poor tender but improving, his tail sweeping the floor in quiet greeting. Kneeling beside him, Vasquez felt the moral coil tighten. Report the pattern fully, invite scrutiny on Ruiz and herself, or adhere to Harlan's counsel and risk eroding the trust she'd built. The base's discipline demanded obedience, but the boy's silent vigil and Rex's unwavering loyalty whispered of a higher reckoning, one that would soon spill beyond the training grids into the light of consequence. As evening shadows stretched across the bay, the first ripples of public awareness stirred. A junior sailor, overhearing the mess hall exchange, mentioned it in passing to a base newsletter editor during Liberty Call. By nightfall, whispers of the K9 override circulated in the barracks, the incident no longer contained within the platoon's ranks. Vasquez lay in her bunk, the distant hum of helicopters lulling the base to rest, knowing the test had evolved, from personal defiance to an institutional mirror, reflecting the cost of silence in a world built on command. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The fluorescent lights of the base library flickered as Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez pushed through the heavy doors, the scent of aged paper and stale coffee greeting her like an old acquaintance. It was 600 hours, the base still cloaked in pre-dawn quiet, broken only by the occasional rumble of a supply truck on the perimeter road. She carried a stack of protocol manuals under one arm, her other hand absently touching the tags at her belt. Rex's, a talisman against the growing unease. The vet had cleared him for light duty, but Vasquez had kept him kennelled overnight, his presence too vital to risk amid the escalating scrutiny. She settled at a corner table, the wooden surface scarred from years of use, and spread out her notes. The K9 override whispers from last night's barracks talk had reached her ears through Peterson during midnight watch, subtle at first, then insistent, like radio static building to a signal. Command had called for a formal review, not just of Ruiz's actions, but of the integration protocols she'd championed. Harlan's warning echoed, "Ease off." But as she reviewed the logs, timestamps of alerts ignored, K9 responses dismissed, the pattern sharpened into something undeniable. In the SEALs, patterns weren't coincidences, they were threats. A soft footfall approached, pulling her from the page. Senior Chief Patel, the EOD lead from the debriefs, slid into the chair opposite, his uniform crisp despite the hour. His face, lined from desert rotations, held a measured calm. "Morning, Commander. Harlan sent me. The review board's convening at 0800. Informal, but brass from Norfolk's dialing in remotely. Vasquez closed her notebook, the snap echoing in the empty space. Expected. What's the angle? Patel leaned forward, voice low. Ruiz's CO is framing it as overreach, says your reports are inflating training incidents to push K9 primacy. Command's sensitive, women's integration still a flashpoint. They want unity, not fractures. He paused, eyes flicking to the window where the bay's mist rolled in. Your lead witness, stick to facts. She nodded, the weight settling like wet sand in her boots. Facts are the override risks. Twice now, Rex, then Shadow. In the field, that's not training, that's exposure. Patel's expression softened fractionally, a nod of shared understanding. He'd run point on her first quals, seen the quiet battles she fought to embed K9 units deeper into ops. Understood, just watch the tone. Harlan's walking a tightrope. The review assembled in the ops center's conference room, a windowless space humming with the whir of servers and the sharp scent of dry erase markers. Folding chairs ringed a long table, occupied by Harlan Patel, Ruiz's commanding officer, a stern Captain Ellis from EOD Group 1, and two aides tapping at laptops. Vasquez entered last, saluting before taking her seat, the room's air thick with the unspoken. A video link crackled to life on the wall screen, revealing Admiral Reyes from Norfolk, his uniform frame centered against a backdrop of naval charts. "Let's keep this procedural," Reyes began, his voice tinny through the speakers. "Incidents during K9 drills. Lieutenant Vasquez, your assessment." She stood, posture ramrod straight, and outlined the events. Morning sweep with Rex, the tumble. Yesterday's Grid 4 with Shadow, the missed device. Her delivery was precise, citing regs from the manual, FM 319. 17, K9 precedents in detection. No embellishment, just the chain of commands breached. Ruiz sat across, eyes forward, his hands flat on the table, tense but silent under Ellis's watchful gaze. Ellis interjected midway, his tone clipped. "Commander, these are SIMs. Private Ruiz's detector cleared the zones per tech protocols. K9 alerts are advisory, not absolute. Your emphasis risks sidelining human judgment." Vasquez met his stare evenly. "Sir, in cluttered environments, a dog's nose detects volatiles at parts per billion. Tech lags there. Overriding without sync endangers the asset and the team." The room shifted. Patel's pen scratched notes. Harlan's jaw tightened. Reyes leaned closer to his camera. "Noted. Private Ruiz, your perspective." Ruiz rose, voice steady but edged with the strain of scrutiny. "Admirals, chiefs, my actions followed EOD sweep doctrine. The dogs are trained assets, but in high-threat SIMs, human confirmation prevents false positives, no intent to compromise." He glanced briefly at Vasquez, a flicker of something, regret, resentment, before sitting. The discussion stretched, voices layering like briefing overlays, protocol debates, integration stats, even a nod to the program's evolution since women joined the pipeline. Vasquez felt the undercurrents, Ellis defending his techs, Harlan mediating, Reyes probing for systemic flaws. Outside, the base stirred, boots marching to PT, the low growl of a diesel engine starting up. By 0930, Reyes concluded, "Full investigation. Vasquez, compile a supplemental on K9 risks. Ruiz, suspended from drills pending review. Dismissed." As the room emptied, Harlan pulled Vasquez aside in the corridor, the linoleum cool underfoot. "You held the line." But Ellis is vocal, words spreading to the group command. This could go public if it hits the fleet newsletter. She absorbed it, the corridor's fluorescent hum mirroring her pulse. "Sir, if patterns like this persist, silence costs more." Harlan nodded once, then walked away, his footsteps fading into the base's morning cadence. Mid-morning took her to the range for Qual's oversight. The sharp crack of M4 rounds punctuating the air mingled with the metallic tang of spent brass. Peterson joined her at the firing line. Shadow leashed nearby, the dog's ears perked to the pops. Heard about the board. Ruiz is sidelined. Bunk fever already. Vasquez sighted down her rifle, squeezing off controlled bursts at the silhouette targets, the recoil a familiar anchor. Necessary, but it's bigger now, could reshape how we train. Shadow whined softly, sensing her tension, and she paused to ruffle his fur, the texture grounding. Peterson reloaded beside her. Yeah, and you're the face. Brass loves symbols. Lunch in the mess hall buzzed with subdued energy, trays sliding, the sizzle of grills, conversations dipping when Vasquez entered. She claimed a corner table, but eyes followed, sailors nodding respectfully, a few whispering. Ruiz wasn't there, his absence a void. As she ate, a young EOD tech approached hesitantly, tray in hand. "Ma'am, permission to join? Just wanted to say what you did for Rex. It's why I re-enlisted. Dogs save us as much as we save them." She gestured to the seat, the exchange brief but affirming. "Appreciate it, Seaman. Protocol's there to protect everyone." He nodded and left, but the moment lingered, a quiet ripple amid the institutional tide. Afternoon admin blurred into calls. Vasquez on the line with the K9 program coordinator in San Antonio, detailing the incidents, her voice steady over the static. "Recommend mandatory tandem drills, human K9 sync emphasized." The coordinator agreed, promising updates. But as she hung up, a base PA announcement cut through. "All hands, stand by for Liberty brief. No unauthorized media contact." The warning landed like a distant thunderclap. By 1600, as she walked to the kennels, the playground came into view again. The boy was there, this time with a group of kids, but he broke away, approaching the fence with purposeful steps. His small hand rose in salute once more, tears absent, but eyes fierce, holding hers until she returned it, crisp, unyielding. Rex greeted her at the run with a muffled woof, paw improved, tail sweeping the straw. She clipped his lead, leading him into the exercise yard, the sun warming their path. The public reckoning had begun, not just a review, but eyes turning, sailors command, even beyond the wire. Vasquez felt the moral tension peak, duty clashing with the conscience that demanded voice. In the quiet yard, Rex's steady gait mirrored her resolve. The chain of command would bend or break, but integrity's cost was one she was prepared to pay as the base's shadows lengthened toward evening's inevitable confrontations. The evening sun dipped low over Naval Base Coronado, painting the kennel yard in hues of amber and shadow, the air thick with the briny scent of the bay and the earthy musk of damp fur. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez walked Rex on a measured leash, his steps tentative but gaining strength, the wrap on his paw a faint white against his brindle coat. The exercise yard's chain-link fence rattled softly in the breeze, enclosing them in a space of controlled recovery, much like the base itself, a fortress of routines amid brewing storms. Vasquez's mind replayed the review board's clipped exchanges, Admiral Reyes's probing questions lingering like unresolved static in her earpiece. The investigation had formalized overnight. Ruiz confined to barracks, his qualls halted, while command pored over logs that now included her supplemental report on K9 vulnerabilities. She paused by the water trough, letting Rex lap at the cool stream, his tongue curling methodically. The dog's presence steadied her, a silent anchor in the rising tide of scrutiny. Peterson had texted earlier, discreet per protocol. Fleet grapevines lighting up, newsletter holding, but civilian press sniffed something off base. Vasquez pocketed her phone, the vibration a reminder that walls had ears and eyes beyond the wire. Her path back to quarters skirted the playground fence, where twilight softened the edges of swings and slides. The boy was absent, but his salutes echoed in her thoughts, a child's unfiltered respect, piercing the veil of military formality. In her quarters, the desk lamp cast a warm pool over scattered files, protocol revisions, incident timelines, a draft memo advocating for canine handler primacy and doctrine. Vasquez sat, rubbing her temples, the faint ache from range calls earlier a dull throb. A knock shattered the quiet, sharp, official. She rose, opening the door to find Master Chief Harlan, his face etched deeper by the day's weight, a manila folder under his arm. "Lieutenant," he said, stepping inside without invitation, the door clicking shut. "Command's escalating. Captain Ellis filed a counter-report, claims your interventions are disruptive, undermining EOD cohesion." He placed the folder on the desk, its edges crisp. "Reyes wants a tribunal preview tomorrow. Full panel. You, Ruiz witnesses. This isn't just drills anymore, it's optics." Vasquez stood at ease, absorbing the blow. "Sir, the risks are real. Overriding alerts twice. It's not disruption, it's foresight." Her voice held steady, but her fingers brushed Rex's tags at her belt, the metal grounding her against the institutional pushback. Harlan's eyes met hers, a flicker of reluctant solidarity. "I know, but Ellis is connected, old guard, tech-focused. He's painting you as the agitator, the one stirring division in a unit that's barely integrated women handlers." He paused, glancing at the window where base lights flickered to life. "Testify clean. Facts only, no moral lectures. The system's slow to bend, but it does, if you don't break first." She nodded as he left, the door's latch a punctuation to his warning. Alone, Vasquez paced the narrow room, the concrete floor cool through her socks. Duty demanded compliance, the chain of command a lifeline in chaos. Yet conscience rebelled, a quiet fire kindled by Rex's limp. Shadows ignored bark, the boy's tear-streaked gaze. In the SEALs, integrity wasn't flashy heroism. It was the endurance to voice truth amid the grind, knowing the cost rippled through careers like shockwaves from a buried charge. Sleep came fitfully, broken by dreams of fractured sweeps. Rex vanishing into debris, Ruiz's detector beeping false clears. Dawn broke with the familiar siren, pulling her into utilities and boots, the starch crisp against her skin. Rex joined her at the kennel, cleared for observation duty, his harness snug, as she led him to the tribunal room in the admin block. The space was stark. Polished oak table, flags flanking a raised dais, the air humming with the low buzz of a projector warming up. Sailors in dress blues filed in, Patel, Peterson, a dozen platoon members as witnesses, their footsteps echoing like a subdued formation march. Admiral Reyes presided via secure link, his image sharp on the screen, flanked by two captains from Norfolk. Captain Ellis sat to one side, Ruiz beside him in utilities, posture rigid, eyes fixed on a point beyond Vasquez. She took her seat, Rex at her feet under the table, his warmth a subtle comfort against her boot. The proceedings opened with oaths, voices solemn. "I swear to tell the truth, so help me God." Ellis led first, his presentation methodical, slides of EOD metrics, graphs showing tech accuracy rates. "These incidents are anomalies in a proven system," he stated, voice resonant. "Lieutenant Vasquez's reports exaggerate canine roles, potentially biasing training toward unverified instincts over calibrated equipment." Ruiz followed, his testimony brief. "I followed doctrine, sirs. No malice toward the K9 units. Respectfully, the overrides were judgment calls in dynamic sims." Vasquez's turn came mid-morning, the room's tension coiling like a spring. She stood, saluting the screen. "Admirals, the logs document 2 breaches. Disruption to Rex on day 1, missed sim on day 2 with Shadow. Per FM 319, 17, canine alerts require human confirmation, not dismissal. In operational theaters, this protocol has prevented casualties. My team's experience in theater confirms it. She cited specifics, volatile detection thresholds, tandem drill efficacy stats from recent evals. Rex shifted at her feet, a soft huff escaping him, drawing a few glances, human emotion threading through the procedural veil. Questions followed, pointed. Reyes on integration challenges, Ellis probing her advocacy as overreach. Vasquez answered evenly, her hand dropping briefly to Rex's head under the table, feeling the steady thrum of his pulse. Peterson's witness statement echoed hers. Saw the patterns firsthand. Dogs don't err on intent, they sense what we miss. But Ruiz's platoon mates offered mixed support, some nodding to tech reliability, others silent, the divide mirroring the base's undercurrents. By noon recess, the air in the corridor felt heavier, sailors dispersing to the galley with murmured speculations. Vasquez led Rex outside, the sun harsh on the parade ground, where a distant platoon drilled in formation, commands barking crisp. Peterson caught up, falling in step. You held firm. Ellis twisted it, but Reyes listened. He scratched Rex's ears, the dog leaning into the touch. Kids got your back too. She managed a nod, the moral tension peaking. Testify further, risk alienating allies, or temper her words for the unit's sake. Lunch was sparse, tray of rehydrated rice, black coffee steaming, the mess hall's chatter dipping as eyes turned her way. A group of young techs saluted informally as she passed. A subtle show of solidarity, human vulnerability cracking the disciplined facade. Afternoon resumed with closing arguments, Ellis urging balanced reform without divisive blame. Vasquez countered softly, reform strengthens us. Mandatory sync training honors all assets, human and canine. Reyes adjourned at 1600, promising a ruling by week's end, potential reprimands, protocol tweaks, perhaps program-wide audits. As the room cleared, Harlan approached, voice low. Clean work, but it's public now. Base command's briefing the COs. Eyes on you. Vasquez saluted, leading Rex out into the fading light. The playground fence loomed, the boy there again, this time waving a small American flag fashioned from construction paper, his salute held long, tears glinting anew. She returned it. The gesture a quiet bridge between worlds, her conscience aflame. The tribunal had exposed the fracture, but legacy loomed. Her stand could redefine trust in the ranks or fracture it further. Rex's leash tugged gently, pulling her forward as the base's evening hum enveloped them. Radios crackling, boots on gravel, the inexorable march toward consequence. The twilight deepened over Naval Base Coronado, the floodlights along the perimeter fence humming to life with a soft electrical buzz, casting elongated shadows across the gravel paths. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez led Rex back to the kennels. His leash a steady line between them, the dog's paws padding softly against the cooling earth. The tribunal's echoes lingered in her mind, the measured cadence of testimonies, the flicker of Admiral Reyes's image on the screen, the subtle shifts in the room as witnesses weighed loyalty against truth. Rex sensed her quiet tension, pressing his flank against her leg in a brief grounding nudge, his warmth cutting through the evening chill carried on the bay breeze. She secured him in his run with a routine command, "Settle, partner," and watched as he circled once before lying down, eyes alert but trusting. The kennel block's metal doors clanged shut behind her, the sound reverberating like a final punctuation to the day's proceedings. Vasquez's quarters waited a short walk away, but her path veered instinctively toward the admin block. Drawn by the faint glow spilling from the windows, Base Command had called an all-hands briefing for senior staff, a procedural ripple from the tribunal's adjournment. She adjusted her collar, the fabric still carrying the faint starch of the morning. and entered the low-slung building where the air held the sterile scent of conference rooms and fresh-brewed coffee from a side pot. The briefing room was filling with officers. Harlan at the head table, Patel flipping through a tablet, a cluster of EOD chiefs murmuring in low tones. Vasquez took a seat near the back, her notebook open to a blank page, pen at the ready. Captain Ellis entered last, his posture unyielding, nodding curtly to those he passed before settling beside Harlan. The room quieted as Rear Admiral Torres, the base CO, stepped to the podium, his dress blues impeccable under the harsh fluorescence. "This stays in-house," he began, voice gravelly from years of command decks. "The Norfolk Review has implications beyond our grids. Vasquez's report highlights a doctrinal gap. K9 integration needs teeth. Pending ruling, we're implementing interim sync protocols. All drills require tandem confirmation, no overrides without handler sign-off." Murmurs stirred, a mix of nods and sidelong glances. Ellis leaned forward, his tone measured. "Admiral, with respect, this elevates K9 input over established tech. It could slow ops in the field." Torres met his gaze evenly. "Or save them, Captain. The logs don't lie. 2 misses in sims echo real risks. Vasquez, your supplemental influence this. Expect to lead the rollout training." She stood briefly, saluting. "Aye, sir. Protocols will be briefed by 0600 tomorrow." The affirmation landed quietly, but the room felt it, a shift in the chain, her voice threading into the system's fabric. Harlan caught her eye as the briefing wrapped, gesturing her to the corridor outside, where the linoleum gleamed under emergency lights. "Ruling drops tomorrow. Reyes is leaning reform, your stand's paying off, but Ellis is briefing his group. If it leaks civilian side, media circles." Vasquez absorbed the caution, the corridor's cool draft raising faint goose flesh on her arms. "Understood, Chief. The facts hold." He nodded once, then departed, his footsteps fading into the base's night rhythm. Distant patrols calling clearances over radio, the low whine of a security drone overhead. She exited into the open air, the stars pricking through the coastal haze, and made for the mess hall's side entrance. Evening chow was winding down, trays stacking, the clatter of silverware giving way to the hum of cleanup crews. Vasquez claimed a coffee from the urn, black and steaming, and sat at an empty table, the bitter warmth steadying her as she reviewed mental notes for the morning brief. Peterson appeared moments later, tray balanced with a half-eaten sandwich, sliding into the seat opposite without preamble. "Words out in the barracks, interim protocols. Sailors are talking, some say you're rewriting the book." His eyes held quiet respect, the corpsman's steady gaze unbroken. Shadow wasn't with him tonight, kennelled for rest, but the absence mirrored her own. Ruiz took it hard. Confined, but he's reviewing tapes on his own time, might be turning. She sipped her coffee, the steam curling like unanswered questions. Turning takes time, the system's built for it. Their exchange was brief, mission-focused, but Peterson's nod carried the weight of shared vigilance, the human bond that underpinned the K9 ones. As he left, the mess emptied further, leaving Vasquez with the night's hush and the faint echo of a dishwasher's rumble. Sleep evaded her in quarters, the bunk's thin mattress offering little comfort against the coil of anticipation. She rose before the siren, dawn's grey light filtering through the blinds and dressed with mechanical precision, utilities tucked, boots polished to a subdued sheen. Rex joined her at the kennel as the base stirred. Trucks idling in the motor pool, early PT formations snapping to attention on the parade ground. His paw bore no trace of injury now, the wrap discarded, and he moved with renewed purpose at her heel, harness jingling softly. The platoon assembled at 0530 for the protocol brief, the training grid bathed in the cool mist rolling off the bay. 200 sailors formed ranks, faces expectant under dew-kissed caps. Vasquez stood at the front with Harlan, a projector screen behind them displaying flowcharts, alert hierarchies, sync checkpoints, the unyielding line of canine precedence. "This isn't change for change's sake," she began, voice clear over the coastal wind. "It's refinement. In the field, trust the nose that detects what eyes and screens miss. Overrides halt the sweep. Full stop." Ruiz was absent, his confinement holding, but his platoon mates listened intently, boots shifting on the gravel. Questions came clipped. A tech on detector calibration, a handler on tandem timing. Vasquez fielded them factually, her gestures precise, Rex sitting vigilant at her side, a living emblem of the doctrine. Harlan closed with assignments, paired drills starting immediately, logs to Vasquez for review. As the formation broke, dispersing to sectors with the efficiency of ingrained habit, a young seaman approached, saluting informally. "Ma'am, this makes sense. Lost a buddy to a missed trace in Qualls once. Won't again." She returned the salute, the exchange a subtle affirmation, emotion restrained in the nod she gave. The morning drills unfolded under the rising sun, the air warming with the scent of sun-baked asphalt and oiled equipment. Vasquez oversaw from the ridge, radio clipped to her shoulder, Rex's lead looped on her belt. Teams moved in sync now, detectors humming alongside canine sweeps, alerts confirmed without haste. No fractures today. The protocols held, a quiet reform taking root. By midday, the base PA crackled with an update. Admiral Reyes's ruling released. Ruiz reprimanded, mandatory retraining. Canine integration elevated to core doctrine, with Vasquez tasked as program liaison. Whispers turned to open discussions in the mess, sailors nodding her way with newfound regard. Ellis's counter had landed softly, absorbed into the broader shift. Afternoon brought a call from Norfolk, Reyes himself, voice approving over the secure line. "Your testimony clarified the gap, Commander. This ripples fleet-wide." Vasquez hung up, the ops center's hum fading as she stepped outside. The playground fence drew her once more, the sun high and unrelenting. The boy stood there, flag in hand, his small frame silhouetted against the swings. This time he didn't salute, just watched, a quiet witness to the transformation unfolding. Rex whined softly at her side, sensing the peace settling. The moral tension had crested, duty and conscience aligning in the system's slow bend. Her integrity, forged in silence and defiance, now sparked a legacy. Stronger bonds, refined trust, the institution learning from one handler's stand. As the day waned, with helicopters thumping overhead and the bay's waves lapping steady, Vasquez felt the ripple extend. Careers steadied, reputations mended, the chain of command a little less rigid, a little more just. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Vasquez reach those who still believe in honor. The morning mist clung to Naval Base Coronado like a reluctant veil, softening the edges of the parade ground as Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez assembled the platoon for the final integration drill. At 05:30 hours, the air carried the sharp tang of salt from the bay and the faint acrid bite of dew evaporating off the asphalt. Rex moved at her heel without hesitation, his harness adjusted snugly, the earlier injury now a mere memory in his fluid gait. The ruling from Admiral Reyes had landed the previous evening, formalized in a terse, fleet-wide directive. K-9 protocols elevated, mandatory tandem training embedded in all EOD curricula, with Vasquez designated as the lead instructor for the Pacific Command. No fanfare, just the quiet machinery of reform grinding forward, her reports the catalyst that had bent the rigid lines of doctrine. The formation snapped to attention under the floodlights, 200 sailors standing shoulder to shoulder, their utilities crisp against the chill. Master Chief Harlan paced the front, his voice cutting through the hush like a well-honed blade. "This is live implementation. Vasquez on point. Demonstrate the sync. Precision, K9 alert first, tech confirmation second. No deviations." Nods rippled through the ranks, eyes forward, the collective breath held in disciplined silence. Vasquez stepped forward, clipping Rex's lead with a subtle hand signal, palm down, forward flick. He responded instantly, nose low to the ground as they approached the mock urban grid. Shipping containers stacked like forgotten ruins, inert devices buried in shadowed crevices. Radio chatter filled her earpiece, clipped and efficient. Sector 1 clear, advancing to Grid 2. Vasquez's focus narrowed to Rex's flanks, the way his ears twitched at phantom sense, his tail a straight extension of intent. Private First Class Tomas Ruiz stood at the periphery today, his confinement lifted for observation under Harlan's watchful eye. No longer sidelined, but marked, his utilities bore the fresh press of remediation, his posture rigid with the weight of lessons absorbed. Yesterday's barracks sessions had shifted him. Peterson had reported Ruiz poring over K9 response tapes late into the night, the young tech's haste tempered by the tribunal's mirror. As the sweep progressed, Rex alerted at a simulated barrier. Low growl, paw, stamping once, precise. Vasquez halted the team with a raised fist, her voice steady over the net. "Contact! Confirming! Ruiz!" Paired with a veteran handler now, moved in tandem, his detector humming in sync rather than override. The zone cleared clean, the missed trace from days prior now impossible under the new flow. Murmurs of approval stirred as the platoon regrouped, boots scuffing gravel in unison. Harlan nodded to Vasquez. "Solid. Ruiz, log the variance." The private acknowledged with a crisp, "Aye, Chief." His glance toward her holding no edge, respect earned through the grind, a quiet redemption in the procedural dance. Mid-morning transitioned to debrief in the ops center, the room's air conditioner whispering against the rising heat outside. Folding chairs scraped as the team filed in, notebooks open, the whiteboard updated with fresh timelines, alert hierarchies diagrammed in stark black lines. Vasquez stood at the head, projector casting her supplemental slides, data from theater ops, efficacy rates climbing post-sync. "This isn't theory," she said, voice level, gesturing to a graph of reduced false negatives. "It's the bond, refined, human judgment amplified by instinct. Questions." Hands rose sparingly, clarifications on timing, not challenges. Ruiz spoke last, his tone measured. "Ma'am, the tandem cuts blind spots. Appreciate the emphasis, won't miss it again." She met his eyes, nodding once, the exchange a bridge mended in silence, mentorship forged without words. The base pulsed with the changes by noon, supply clerks updating manuals, instructors revising quals packets, the PA broadcasting reminders over the lunch hour hum. In the mess hall, trays clattered amid subdued conversations, the scent of grilled rations mingling with fresh brewed coffee. Vasquez sat with Peterson and a cluster of young techs, Rex at her feet under the table, his head resting on her boot. The seaman from the prior day joined them, sliding a tray down. "Commander, saw the directive, fleet-wide. You're doing." She waved it off modestly. "Team effort. Protocols protect us all." But the nods around the table spoke volumes, human vulnerability surfacing in the shared glances, the subtle tremor of a hand on a coffee mug, the held breath before a question on real-world application. Afternoon brought the first mentorship rotation. Vasquez paired with Ruiz for a hands-on tandem session in the kennel yard, the chain-link fence rattling softly in the breeze. Shadow joined them, leashed to the private, the two dogs mirroring their handlers' measured steps. "Feel the lead," she instructed, demonstrating Rex's subtle cues. "Not control, partnership." Ruiz gripped the line, his movements tentative at first, then steadying as Shadow alerted to a planted, volatile sample. No override, just confirmation. The detector beeping in harmony. Sweat beaded on his brow under the sun, but his nod was firm. Clear now, ma'am. Instinct leads. The session ended with a quiet debrief by the water trough. Dogs lapping steadily, the moment a legacy in embryo. One tech reshaped, the fracture healed into stronger seams. As evening fell, the base's rhythms softened, the distant thump of a Blackhawk settling on the pad, floodlights blooming along the perimeter. Vasquez's path to quarters skirted the playground once more, the fence wires glinting in the twilight. The boy was there, perched on the lowest bar of the monkey structure, his small frame silhouetted against the fading sky. No tears this time, just a steady gaze as she approached, Rex pausing at her side to tilt his head. The child slid down, feet hitting the dirt with a soft thud, and raised his hand in salute, crisp, unwavering, the gesture now a ritual of quiet admiration. Vasquez returned it, holding the position a beat longer, the bond unspoken, a symbol bridging the worlds of rigid order and innocent witness. Word of the reforms spread beyond the wire by nightfall. Fleet newsletters crediting the Coronado Initiative, anonymous sources praising the handler's stand without naming her. In her quarters, Vasquez reviewed the day's logs by desk lamp, the yellow glow pooling on the pages. Rex curled at the bunk's foot. A call from Norfolk interrupted. Admiral Reyes, voice approving over the secure line. Commander, your integrity set the course. This elevates the program. Expect invitations to brief the Academy. She acknowledged, the line clicking dead, leaving the room's hush, broken only by Rex's even breathing. The transformation settled like dawn over the bay. Elena Vasquez, once tested in silence, now a symbol of moral strength within the ranks. Her defiance had sparked not division, but quiet evolution, the chain of command, yielding to conscience, loyalty between human and canine woven deeper into the institution's core. Careers steadied, protocols sharpened, the system learning that true discipline embraced vulnerability, turning potential fractures into enduring resilience. In the end, as the base lights twinkled against the night, one truth endured. Honor was not in blind obedience, but in the courage to safeguard the bonds that held them all. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching. The case of the woman SEAL walked past the playground in silence until a boy saluted her with tears. See you in the next one.